Welcome to Mystic Eternal Enigmas, where we unravel the greatest mysteries of the ancient world. Dive in and explore the secrets that time has yet to reveal. What happens after the last breath? Does the self dissolve into nothingness or pass through portals beyond human comprehension? Welcome, soul traveler, to the mystery of mysteries. Today, we will explore one of the most profound and enigmatic texts of Tibetan Buddhism, the Bardo Thodol, known in the West as the Tibetan Book of the Dead. Imagine a guide capable of accompanying you in the deepest and most mysterious moments of existence. This is the role of the Bardo Thodol. This is not simply a handbook on the end of life, but a map, a spiritual guide to understanding what happens immediately after physical death. Get ready, because together we will pass through this portal, reveal its messages, and perhaps understand a little more about the meaning of existence. The Bardo Thodol was created by Padmasambhava, a legendary and almost mythical figure in Tibetan Buddhism. Born in India, he is widely recognized as the master who brought Buddhism to Tibet in the 8th century. Tibetan tradition reveres him as Guru Rinpoche, the precious master. But Padmasambhava was not just a monk. He was a profound spiritual master, a yogi who mastered mystical techniques and esoteric teachings. The Bardo Thodol was born from his desire to guide not only the living, but also the dead, offering them a path to liberation even after their last breath. From a young age, Padmasambhava displayed extraordinary mystical abilities, being recognized as a Mahasiddha, a figure who has reached an extreme level of spiritual realization by developing miraculous powers. Invited to Tibet by King Trezong Detsen, who wished to expand Buddhism and strengthen the country spiritually, Padmasambhava faced cultural and spiritual resistance, as the Bon religion, an indigenous spiritual practice, was deeply rooted. Through his use of magic and tantric rituals, Padmasambhava was able to integrate the deities and practices of Bon into Tibetan Buddhism, creating a solid spiritual foundation. He thus founded the first Buddhist monastery in Tibet, the Sami, and began to transmit profound teachings on the mind, reality, and the cycle of existence, known as Samsara. In Tibetan Buddhism, death is not seen as an end, but as a transitory state, a moment of opening to the possibility of spiritual liberation. Padmasambhava understood that at the moment of death, the mind enters a special state, where, free from the distractions of the physical body, it is more receptive to the ultimate truth. He knew, however, that most people, at the moment of death, are lost in illusions and fears that prevent this possibility. His mission was to create a guide that could be recited by those accompanying the dying or studied in life to prepare the mind for the Bardo, the transitory states after death. The Bardo Thodol is based on compassion, reducing suffering and opening doors to enlightenment even when everything seems uncertain and dissolving. Padmasambhava knew that many would not achieve enlightenment in life, but he saw death as a final opportunity and offered instructions so that practitioners could recognize the clear light, the pure manifestation of the mind, at the moment of passing. The Bardo Thodol describes 3 main states that every soul passes through. The Chikhai Bardo, the moment of death. In this state, the soul experiences the moment of death and the dissolution of the physical body, facing the clear light. This light is described as a pure and infinite radiance, the manifestation of the absolute nature of the mind, a place free of duality and attachment. The enlightened practitioner can recognize it and achieve immediate enlightenment, thus escaping the cycle of rebirth. However, to the unprepared, the light can appear frightening, causing the soul to retreat and miss the opportunity for liberation. The Chikhai Bardo, the Bardo of the moment of death, is one of the crucial stages in the Tibetan Book of the Dead, the Bardo Thodol, which describes the soul's experience during the dying process and what happens immediately afterward. This is one of the most significant and powerful moments of human existence, in which the individual is called to confront his true nature and ultimate reality. In the Chikhai Bardo, the soul experiences physical death and separation from the body. This transition is described as the dissolution of the various elements that constitute material existence, a process of dematerialization that marks the end of the physical form. However, this stage is not just a physical death, but a death of all attachment and identification with matter, leading the individual towards a more subtle reality. In this state, the soul is faced with the clear light, a vision of pure, infinite, non-conceptual radiance. This light represents the ultimate nature of the mind, beyond ordinary perception and duality. It is a direct manifestation of reality as it is, without distortions caused by the egoic mind or the illusions of the material world. Clear light is the aspect of the absolute unknowable that emerges in this state of transition between life and death. According to Tibetan traditions, for a person who has practiced and developed awareness during life, recognizing this light is a unique opportunity to achieve immediate enlightenment. In this case, the individual recognizes his or her true nature, understanding that light is the manifestation of his or her enlightened mind. By being able to maintain awareness in this state, one can avoid reincarnation and thus escape the cycle of rebirth and suffering of samsara. However, for those who are unprepared or have not developed a solid spiritual practice, the clear light can be frightening and incomprehensible. The individual does not recognize this radiance as the manifestation of his true nature, and therefore may perceive it as an alien and threatening phenomenon. The fear reaction is often the result of the resistance of the ego, which seeks to maintain its own existence and identity, refusing the dissolution of the self. This fear can lead the soul to withdraw from the light, choosing to follow a path of confusion and loss that will lead to rebirth in a new body. In this case, the person does not reach enlightenment and resumes the cycle of birth, death, and rebirth, remaining trapped in samsara. The idea of clear light has analogies with other sacred texts, such as the Egyptian Book of the Dead, which also refers to light and post-mortem judgment. However, in the Tibetan context, light represents not only a symbol of purification or passage, but also a point of revelation and liberation. The main difference is that the Tibetan Bardo emphasizes spiritual awareness as the key to overcoming the cycle of samsara, while in the Egyptian context, light is more closely linked to the judgment of the heart and preparation for a journey to the afterlife. Chikhai Bardo is not just a moment of physical death, but it is the door to a possible spiritual realization. The clear light that manifests is the proof of our inner nature and the possibility of overcoming suffering through awareness. The key to facing this moment lies not in resistance or fear, but in the recognition of our eternal essence. For those who have walked the path of spiritual practice, the moment of death can be the crowning achievement of the journey, finally bringing liberation from the cycle of rebirth. The Chönyid Bardo, the Bard of Visions. If the soul fails to recognize the clear light, it enters the Chönyid Bardo, a state in which the mind experiences projections of its emotions and accumulated karma. These projections can manifest as serene visions of peaceful deities or as terrifying apparitions of wrathful deities. These visions represent the mind itself. The peaceful deities reflect enlightened qualities, while the wrathful ones embody unresolved passions and attachments. The Bardo Thodol emphasizes that these visions are mental creations, and that recognizing them as such allows one to transcend fear and achieve liberation. The Chönyid Bardo, the Bardo of Visions, represents one of the central stages in the Bardo Thodol, and is the second stage the soul passes through after the initial phase of encountering the clear light in the Chikhai Bardo. If the soul has failed to recognize the clear light and has therefore not achieved immediate enlightenment, it enters this intermediate state where the experience becomes dominated by mental visions that reflect the individual's inner, karmic state. The Chönyid Bardo is characterized by a powerful and surprising visual experience in which the soul sees projections that arise from its emotions, unresolved desires, and karma accumulated during life. These visions are not random, but are direct manifestations of the mind itself, which emerge based on the psychological and emotional state of the person at the time of death. The visions are divided into two main categories: peaceful deities and wrathful deities, each of which carries with it a profound meaning. Both reflect aspects of the individual's mind and its relationship with reality. Peaceful deities appear as serene and benevolent figures, characterized by forms of great beauty, compassion, and wisdom. These deities represent enlightening qualities such as altruistic love, purity of mind, and liberation from suffering. In the context of the Bardo, these visions indicate that the soul is able to recognize its connection to the divine nature and can be oriented toward liberation. However, to the unprepared, even peaceful deities may seem distant or difficult to recognize as projections of one's own mind. In this case, the soul may fail to grasp their meaning and miss the opportunity to achieve enlightenment. Wrathful deities, on the other hand, are menacing, frightening figures filled with destructive energy. They are representations of negative passions, such as anger, hatred, greed, and fear, which have not been purified or resolved during life. These terrifying visions reflect the accumulation of negative karma and unresolved attachments, manifesting as deities appearing in menacing forms, often surrounded by flames or carrying symbolic weapons. Wrathful deities are the fruit of a confused mind and the inability to recognize one's Buddha nature, condemning the individual to perceive reality as something frightening and hostile. The Bardo Thodol teaches that all these visions, whether peaceful or wrathful, are not objective realities, but mental projections that arise from accumulated karmic experiences and emotions. These visions, while extremely powerful, are essentially illusions created by the individual's mind. In other words, they are a reflection of one's mental state and emotional attitude toward the world and death. The text then invites the soul to recognize the illusory nature of these apparitions. When the soul is able to perceive that these deities, both peaceful and wrathful, are simply manifestations of its own karma and emotions, it can transcend fear and stop the cycle of illusions. This awareness allows one to achieve liberation from the prison of mental visions and, if possible, to access a deeper level of spiritual understanding. The Chönyid Bardo is therefore a time of great potential, but also of great risk. Visions, if not understood, can imprison the soul in a vicious circle of fear and attachment. However, the text provides specific instructions for the individual in the Bardo. Recognizing that visions are projections of one's own mind is the act of liberation. For example, peaceful deities can be seen as manifestations of one's inner wisdom, and wrathful deities can be recognized as projections of one's unresolved emotions. The awareness that all these visions are not separate from oneself, but are mental creations, allows one to transform them into enlightened experiences. The Bardo Thodol emphasizes that, although the visions may seem external, they are internal aspects of the individual himself, and the recognition of this deep connection is the key to successfully passing through this stage and progressing towards liberation. The concept of visions as mental projections has analogies with other texts, such as the Egyptian Book of the Dead, where the soul must face spiritual challenges or tests that reflect its preparation and inner purity. However, while in the Egyptian context, preparation for the afterlife is centered on the judgment of the heart and overcoming tests, in the Tibetan Chönyid Bardo, the emphasis is on self-awareness and the ability to recognize the illusory nature of experiences. The Chönyid Bardo represents a pivotal moment in which the soul has the opportunity to evolve spiritually, overcoming its own karma and unresolved emotions. The visions that emerge in this state are mirrors of one's own mind, and the key to successfully navigating them is the awareness that they are illusions, not external realities. By recognizing this truth, the soul can free itself from fear and illusions, moving toward final liberation or enlightenment. The Sidpa Bardo, the Rebirth. The third state, the Sidpa Bardo, represents the time when the soul prepares for rebirth, guided by karma and tendencies accumulated in previous lives. Visions in this Bardo include images of united couples, symbolizing the creation of a new life. The soul, influenced by its karmic inclinations, is attracted to a new body with the desire to continue existing. Only by maintaining detachment and lucidity can the soul avoid a sealed fate and aspire to liberation. The Sidpa Bardo, known as the Bardo of Rebirth, is the third stage described in the Bardo Thodol. the Tibetan Book of the Dead, and marks the period following physical death and the visions of the Chönyid Bardo. While the Chönyid Bardo is a field of mental experiences related to past karma, the Sidpa Bardo represents the moment when the soul prepares to reincarnate in a new body, guided by karmic influences and inclinations acquired in previous lives. In the Sidpa Bardo, the soul, having passed through the Chikhai Bardo and the Chönyid Bardo, faces the prospect of a new life. This stage is dominated by the karma accumulated during the previous life, which creates the conditions for the future rebirth. Karma, understood as the set of unresolved actions, intentions, and emotions, becomes the engine that pushes the soul towards a new existence. In this state, the soul is like a karmic wanderer asterisk, looking for a body in which it can continue its journey. The visions that characterize the Sidpa Bardo are deeply linked to the concept of the creation of life. A recurring image in this stage is that of united couples, symbolizing the generation of a new life. These visions may appear as a meeting between a man and a woman, or as other symbolic representations of the principle of creation. These images reflect the desire for existential continuity and attachment to a new life cycle, in which the soul seeks to reunite with a new physical form. The soul, although aware of its intermediate state, feels attracted by these visions and by the idea of continuing to exist. This desire for existence is the fruit of karma and inclinations that have not been purified. Attachment to life and the desire to be reborn are the main obstacles to liberation at this stage. Karma, or the sum of one's past actions, plays a major role in determining the nature of rebirth. If the soul has not purified its karmic inclinations through proper spiritual practice during its lifetime, it is prone to being reborn in a state that reflects the accumulated negative karma. In this way, the soul becomes attached to a form that will repeat the cycles of suffering and desire, without being able to break the cycle of Samsara, the wheel of rebirths. Karmic inclinations can cause the soul to reincarnate in situations or environments that reproduce the same emotional and mental patterns that the soul has already experienced in previous lives, as a sort of law of karmic reflection. In other words, the soul will be attracted to a life form that corresponds to its desires, fears, and unresolved attachments. At this stage, detachment is the key to avoiding rebirth in samsara. If the soul can maintain a clear awareness that is detached from these visions of union and desire, it can avoid being trapped in reincarnation. Recognizing that the desire to be reborn is a manifestation of attachment and suffering is essential to avoid falling into the cycle of rebirth again. Only by maintaining an inner clarity and an attitude of non-attachment can the soul transcend the Sidpa Bardo and achieve final liberation. The Bardo Thodol suggests that during the Sidpa Bardo, the soul is accompanied by a spiritual guide or master who provides instructions on how to recognize these karmic forces and how to avoid following the cycle of rebirth. Spiritual guidance is a crucial element, as it helps the soul to remain aware of its unidentified nature and its ability to free itself from the desire to be reborn. Sidpa Bardo is a time of great potential for the soul. Although it is a time when the soul is strongly influenced by karmic forces, it is also an opportunity to transcend the cycle of rebirth. If the soul is aware of its karmic inclinations and can maintain detachment, it has the possibility of freeing itself from the spiral of samsara. Awareness at this stage is crucial, because if the soul is overwhelmed by desires and karmic tendencies, it will end up reincarnating, continuing the cycle of suffering. In the context of other esoteric texts, such as the Egyptian Book of the Dead, there are similarities to the Sidpa Bardo. In both cases, the soul is faced with a critical decision that will determine its ultimate fate. While in the Tibetan Book, the Sidpa Bardo focuses on reincarnation as a consequence of karma and attachment, in the Egyptian Book of the Dead, the soul faces judgment to determine its fate in the afterlife. But here too, it is purity and detachment that allow the soul to ascend. The key to crossing the Sidpa Bardo is the awareness and ability to recognize that the desire to be reborn is a projection of unpurified karma. With the right attitude of detachment, the soul can escape the marked fate and aspire to final liberation. The Bardo Thodol teaches that preparation for this crucial moment begins in life, through contemplation of the nature of the mind and one's fears. Meditating on death and reflecting on the cycle of attachments and desires can help one recognize visions as projections of the mind and maintain focus on the clear light. The Tibetan Book of the Dead is more than just a religious text. It is a tool for self-knowledge and a reminder of our connection to the cyclical nature of existence. As Ram Dass once said, "When you die, there's only one question that matters. How much did you love?" This text invites us to ask ourselves, are we ready for the final journey? Are we willing to let go of who we think we are to discover our true essence? If this journey into the mysteries of the Bardo Thodol has piqued your curiosity, subscribe to the channel, share the video, and let us know in the comments what fascinates you most about life after death. Thanks for watching Mystic Eternal Enigmas. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the like button. Share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe for more deep dives into history's greatest mysteries. See you in